Khalidi, who is the Vice President of the Palestinian American Congress, one of the largest Palestinian organizations in America, and Dr. Ken Kellner, National Vice President for the Public Affairs for Likud, United States of America, Likud USA. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Greatly appreciate it. Let me ask you, I suggested to Mr. Khalidi that some people suggest that we should hold out hope, optimism for these talks. Others suggest that there's no real reason, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. What do you gentlemen?
Well, if I may start, I think, hope was the premise that the Palestinians and the Arabs went to peace negotiation with Israel. As we know, Israel enacted lately brutal and oppressive measures against the Palestinians. Netanyahu, before came in power, he had declared his negative political program, which was associated with no to return to the pre-1967 borders, no to giving up Jerusalem, no to the Palestinian independent state, no to the air rights for the Palestinian, no to the water rights, etc., etc. This negative political program was very provocative in that area. And he, last week, as we saw, he opened a disputed tunnel, which was disputed 10 years ago. The three previous governments of Israel, Rabin, Shamir, and Peres, couldn't dare to open this sensitive issue or open the tunnel, which is a very sensitive issue.
Okay.
Now, he came to Washington and he didn't concede anything. So I don't know what hope is right now.
Dr. Kellner?
Well, I think that we should start with the idea that the Israeli national anthem, Hatikva, means the hope. And Israel, for 50 years, has sought peace with its Arab neighbors and peace with the world. Unfortunately, it has never been granted that. And I think that what really undermines hope is the fact that Yasser Arafat leads the Palestinian people at this point. And he is and has been in the past a terrorist organization, led a terrorist organization. He apparently, despite his agreement with the late Prime Minister Rabin, did not give up armed struggle and called for violence against the Jewish people and against Israel recently. And in fact, got his army, or his police force, as they like to call it, to start firing on innocent Jewish people who were living up to the accords. And I think that that really does give us pause in terms of how much hope there can be during these negotiations. And yet, Prime Minister Netanyahu has agreed to continue with the negotiations. And I think that that is a demonstration that even though the Palestinians have flagrantly and repeatedly, in many, many ways, violated the Oslo Accords, that the Israeli people, including the new prime minister, so desperately want peace that they are willing to try once again.
Mr. Khalidi, let me ask you, it seems as though we truly have two sides looking at one picture, seeing something completely different. That has been the case, unfortunately, historically. Do you think that the gap is widening or closing?
I think the gap is widening, and I think it's about time that the American administration, which is a signatory to these agreements, step up and say something about these kinds of violations. I think, in fact, the shoe is on the other foot than the Likud spokesman stated. Most of the violations that the international press has attested has been by the Israeli side, and our administration has basically rolled over and played dead and refused to adjudicate some of these issues. Both sides have positions that might or might not be wrong, and I think it is the responsibility of our government to step up and say this or that clause of the agreement is not being kept, failing which I think there is very little grounds for optimism. I think that left to themselves, this government in particular, this Israeli government, is very, very unlikely to make any kind of steps towards an agreement with the Palestinians. And I think that we have a responsibility as Americans, as the government, which was responsible for brokering these agreements.
Let me take a quick break here, and we'll come back with more, and you gentlemen can address that. Back in a moment. talking about the very tenuous and volatile situation in the Middle East, and we're joined by, in studio here, Maher Abdelqader, and he's Vice President of the Palestinian American Congress, one of the largest Palestinian organizations in America. I want to put to you one of the questions that we have heard over the course of the last couple of weeks, that perhaps both men, Benjamin Netanyahu and Yasser Arafat, are too far on each end to meet in the middle. Is that fair criticism?
I think currently it is a fair criticism because Netanyahu made his policies very well known prior to him coming into office. He said so many no's that he closed the road for peace. We have to realize that.
What about Arafat?
Arafat, first of all, Arafat was elected by the majority of the Palestinian people. He got over 80% of the vote, which means the majority of the Palestinian people want him and elected him as a leader for them, whether we like him or we don't like him. Arafat got engaged in peace because he wants to improve the economic condition for the Palestinian and remove the occupation. As we know, UN Resolution 242 and 338 made that the land which was occupied by Israel in 1967 as a land that must be given up during the peace. Now, Israel is not making a commitment to peace under Netanyahu. In the contrary, they are saying no, no, no to too many things.
Let me take you over to Dr. Ken Kellner, National Vice President for Public Affairs for Likud USA, and you suggested that we should note that there is no real affiliation with the government of Israel.
We're not official spokesmen for the Israeli government. We're American Jews who support them.
Of what they do. What about Netanyahu? A lot of criticism, quite frankly, out of these talks, even by the United States press, who normally is quite kind to Israel to some degree, and no stigma attached there. Just many people suggest that, but a lot of criticism on his hardline stance this go round.
Well, the media has been critical of Israel in a disproportionate and unbalanced way now for many, many years. And this is widely known. You can read it in the op-ed columns of the New York Times, the Washington Post, and elsewhere, that even some of their columnists say this. So I take issue with that, first of all. I think Netanyahu has changed the negotiating stance of Israel in the following way. He now insists, unlike the previous Israeli government, on reciprocity, which means that if Israel is going to live up to its side of the bargain, that the PLO must as well, including stopping such violations as maintaining Jerusalem offices, which it is not allowed under Oslo, sanctifying and praising Arab terrorists like Abu Ayyad, not stopping terrorism by Hamas, suicide bombings.
Let me stop you right there.
I could go on and on.
Break. Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll be back in just a moment.